Hey there, friend. You are in for a treat. I'm Roshanda Pratt, known in the digital streets as the Rosho Live, video visibility coach and producer, empowering you to build a brand with video because your visibility is power. As you can see, I'm wearing my LinkedIn swag because I'm really excited about this conversation with my friend Lloyd George. Get that right, Lloyd George, the podcast guy. We're going to be sharing with you today our journey from going from expert to becoming official LinkedIn learning instructors. Yeah, a lot of you have been sliding in the DMs asking us, how did this happen? How did you do it? So, we're going to talk a little bit about our experience, and then we're also going to share with you our course, which, if you haven't watched either of our courses, you have no excuse after tonight. So I'm really excited. It's going to be amazing. Listen, we're streaming across 3 platforms right now. We are on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Shelly Pugh, good to see you. Thank you so much for popping in. Do me a favor, okay? If you're watching this live, make sure to use hashtag live. If you're watching this in the replay, make sure to use hashtag replay. And then, just like I popped up Shelly's comment, and she said, good evening. I want to do the same for you, okay? For those of you who are here live. So give StreamYard permission to use your name and likeness, or else you're just going to be Facebook user during our entire conversation. I want to be able to say hello to you. So thank you so much for being here. Let's go ahead and get started and bring in my guy, a new friend. I'm going to go ahead and say, I appropriately stalked. Notice I said appropriately stalked Lloyd George on TikTok for quite some time. And so we moved our relationship from TikTok over here to LinkedIn. We made it LinkedIn official. And so I'm excited because he's joining me live from look at this. Look at this view here. Look at this.
Thank you so much for having me. I will say I'm loving the t-shirt. It's
Yeah.
very fitting. I'm loving it.
Thank you. Thank you. So tell everybody where you are joining us live from because I'm here in my studio, but where are you?
Yeah, so I am in Los Angeles right now. Obviously, the weather happens to be great right now. I just moved here about a week and a half ago, so I don't even know where I am geographically, but I know the weather is good. That's it. And I'm so excited to be chatting. So thank you so much for inviting me onto your platform.
Oh, I'm so glad that you are here, my friend. And this is such a great conversation we're having because we're talking about like this journey of moving in our respective lanes and the work that we do, me as a visibility coach and you as the podcast guy. So we have a couple of new friends who are joining us. Go ahead, Lloyd, introduce yourself, tell people who you are and what you do.
Yeah, I am the podcast guy. I help people start podcasts. I help people manage their podcasts. I
Mhm.
also create content for some of your favorite brands. So I create TikTok content for Spotify. I've obviously created a podcast course with LinkedIn. And so I'm just the all things podcast guy. If you have questions on how to start your podcast or grow your podcast, I create content to help you do just that.
You guys, he's amazing. One of the reasons why I started following you, Lloyd, on TikTok is because I absolutely loved your voice. I'm like, this guy has a radio voice. He should be doing podcasts. So let's talk about your journey. How did you get into the podcast space?
Yeah, so I started my first podcast in 2018, and it was a podcast to help immigrants tell their stories. And I didn't really know anything about podcasting. All I knew is I wanted to talk to people. And so I started it in 2018, and my life changed. Just like things that were happening that I just could not even believe. I don't have a college degree, but yet through my podcast, I was getting all these opportunities to meet people, to do different kinds of work. And that was the first time I realized that there was a real opportunity within the world of podcasting to change
Mhm.
people's lives. And so in 2021, I started creating content to help people start their first podcast.
So you started creating content in 2021. That is like right next door. So you're
Yes.
relatively new to the content creation space, but look at all of the brand deals that you have secured. I know that you have sponsorship with a couple of people. You just talked about that you create TikTok videos for Spotify and all those things. That's amazing.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and I think it's so funny that you say that because I
Mhm.
didn't have the confidence to create TikTok content until I started my podcast. And so it was almost like an opportunity for me to practice talking to people, an opportunity for me to practice sharing my opinion publicly. And so podcasting really helped me do that. And since creating content online, I mean, my life
Mhm.
has changed completely.
I love that. Before we talk about how your life has changed completely, let's back up a little bit. I did not know that you started working with immigrants to tell their story through podcasting. I love that. As a daughter of immigrant parents, my parents are from the beautiful country of Trinidad and Tobago. So tell me, why was that so important to you to work with immigrants?
That's amazing. I didn't know that about you either. I'm learning so much
Yeah,
about you
I'm a
today.
Trini. I tell people all the time, don't let this American accent fool you. I grew up off of curry chicken,
Yes.
cassava, plantains. You see how it comes out?
I love it. I love it. I love it. We're gonna learn a lot about each other.
Yes.
I heard an interesting statistic, right? Which was the
Hmm.
statistic was out of all of the startups in the United States that are valued at over $1 billion, 50% of them were started by at least one immigrant founder, and that just blew my mind away. There were all these cool stories of immigrants doing amazing things. I just didn't know who they were, and so I decided I was going to start this podcast just to bring more visibility to people like that. And that's what led me on my journey to start that first podcast. And just as an example of just like one of the amazing things that happened before I
Hmm.
started the podcast, I ended up collaborating with the city of Atlanta and another organization called Forward. And I made almost $6,000 from that podcast with like no downloads, no listeners. They just liked the idea. They wanted to support it. And so those are just things that I didn't even know were possible, creating content online.
You're like the poster child for everything I say about visibility being power. Like you are the poster child for this because you are proof of what happens when you take a bet on yourself and you just take a chance. You start messy, you just do it. You have an idea and you just launch it. And for you to say you launched this podcast idea, people paid you for it, and you didn't even have all the downloads or all the metrics or all the things that people talk about in the online space.
It's so crazy. It's very, very wild. Creating content in general, and that's part of why I love your content. I think the first thing I saw with your content was like, oh my gosh, like whenever I see people like they have glasses and they don't have glare, I'm like, how are they doing that with their video? So that was the first thing I saw, and I was like, oh man, I need to follow this person to learn how to do that. And then I think I started to get ingrained with your content, and I think there was a lot of overlap in some of the things that we
Yeah.
talk about.
I love that. So let's talk about it. You you're known as the podcast guy, and so you launched a course in partnership with LinkedIn, becoming a LinkedIn learning instructor. Congratulations, friend.
Thank you, and same to you. Uh,
Thank
and
you.
and I will say, like, I that experience for me working with LinkedIn to create this course was so amazing. And I think one of the things it did for me was just
Mhm.
I was already creating TikTok content, helping people start their podcast, but working with
Sure.
LinkedIn just gave me access to get to more people and to create a formalized place to help all of the people I was already helping. Hundreds of people had already been asking me, do you have a course? Do you have a course? Do you have a course? And
Yeah.
this to me was just the opportunity to finally create one so that people had a central place to go and learn. And
Mhm.
so for that reason, that's why it just made sense to me. I'd love to learn just sort of like how your
Yeah.
course came about too.
It's similar. I've been in this online space for about 6 years. I started in the days of Periscope. Some of you all will remember me in the Periscope days. And, I already had courses, I already had those things, but I really wanted to do something and leverage LinkedIn. And I saw that they were moving in the direction of the creator economy, creator content. And there wasn't really, this was a new niche over there. And so I said, this will be a great way to position myself as an expert, as an authority in this. And so I created a course on LinkedIn called How to Be Seen and Heard as a Video Creator. Really, Lloyd, this is the course I needed when I started. Seriously, to see people engaging with this course and saying things like, oh my gosh, I know exactly what to do now. I feel empowered to show up and create content, to show up on camera. It's really like, okay, that was the goal because this is exactly what I wish I knew when I started. And I would dare say with your course, it's probably the same thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think similar to you, I intentionally made the course very bite-sized. So the entire course is like 19 minutes, which is just I don't even know if that that is like the shortest course I've ever seen. And
Yeah,
so for me, it's like the types of people I'm helping are people that don't have time, people that know they should start a podcast, but they don't know where to start. They think the commitment might be a bit much. This course was an opportunity to condense people and say, in 19 minutes, if you watch this course, you can have a podcast at the end of this course. That's
love
how
it.
simple it is to start a podcast. And I find myself often being the person that I had a friend reach out to me last week and he was like, hey,
Hmm.
I'm thinking about starting a podcast. I'm gonna buy a camera. I'm gonna buy a microphone. What else should I buy? And I was just telling him like, don't buy any of that. Just start like today, like right now. Like pull out your cell phone and start like after this call. And I find myself being the person that's just helping people simplify things to the lowest common denominator, just so they can start. And that's kind of what this course does as
That's what I
well.
love about you. You just gonna keep it simple. Like, don't go through all those things. And that's what I tell people when it comes to video content. They want to go out and buy the DSLR camera. And I know what's gonna happen with that because I have one too, and it's still in the bag. You know, because this is what's convenient to us. This is what feels comfortable. This is what we know. And so I tell people, start with your phone. So I want to pull up your course because if you are on the LinkedIn platform, here's my guy right here, and here's his course. And listen, one of the things I want us to do here, I'm going to pop this up. I want us just to listen to this opening, like the introduction of the video. Okay. So let me go ahead and hit play so you guys can take a listen. Oh, hold on a second. I got to turn up the volume. Hello. Okay, here we go.
If you want to record a podcast easily from anywhere in the world, Anchor is the software to use. And in this course, I'm going to show you how. Oh, and by the way, I'm Lloyd, founder of Creator Hub, a newsletter for aspiring creators. I want to talk to you about what a podcast is, how you can record, edit, and publish your podcast using Anchor. You can do it all from a cell phone, a tablet, or a desktop. Today, we're going to focus on the mobile version so you can record your podcast from anywhere. If you're ready to start your podcast, let's dive in.
Like, seriously, people, how simple is that? Like, you got no excuse. It's so simple. And and you're giving us, as I like to say to people, you're giving us the keys to the kingdom. Like, seriously. And I love that you're making it simple, right? Because isn't that how you started?
Literally from my cell phone, just like, pick up a phone, record on your voice memo and get going. And I find that, there is not that the benefit for buying more expensive equipment doesn't necessarily correlate to return on investment always. And
Right.
so if you have your
Hmm.
cell phone, that is by far the easiest way to start. And this course kind of helps you do that. And so it's been so fascinating. One of the things I wanted to share is when I'm
Hmm.
helping people with audio, sometimes people kind of feel like it's a bit easier to start, so to speak, because it's like you don't really have to look at yourself. You could kind of hide behind not having any video.
Hmm.
But when you're helping people start, what is that like? Because I know, like, going from not creating content to just starting on video can feel like a big jump.
Yeah, and it is because a lot of what I'm dealing with is people having the confidence to show up on camera and believing that they have something of value to say and believing that people want to hear them. And a lot of that goes to, we have this mantra in our company that visibility is power, but it starts as an inside job. And so doing that inner work of feeling confident to show up on camera and knowing that you're someone's solution, you're the answer that they're looking for, but they're only going to find you if you're consistently showing up. And so a lot of it is doing this practice of talking to yourself in the mirror. What are the things that you're saying to yourself? Practicing recording the video for you before you ever post it. And then also just visualizing an audience that loves you and people that you enjoy speaking with as you hit that record button. Because it's my journey. I worked in television news, Lloyd, for 20 years behind the scenes as a television news producer. And people would say, oh, you're comfortable with the media. Not true. When I first started in this online space of creating video content, I didn't like my voice and I didn't like my appearance on camera. So I had to learn how to build my visibility and my confidence muscle to feel comfortable presenting to people. And that's what we talk about in how to be seen and heard as a video creator, from everything of, listen, your profile picture speaks a story to how to tell your story in 3 words to how to finally create a visibility plan that's sustainable and so that you don't burn out, everything is in that course.
That's incredible. And I feel like, you got the opportunity to see my intro video. I think it's only fair that we get to share your video.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to put me on the spot. And I said, you know what? This guy is going to put me on the spot and he's going to say, well, we're showing yours. We see mine. Why can't we see yours? Okay, fair enough. So we're going to see my intro video to my course,
Yes.
How to Be Seen and Heard as a Video Creator.
Sell. Let's explore. Facts tell, but stories sell. Let's explore the current story you're telling online and if you need to make any changes. Social media is the new handshake. A firm, authentic handshake with a smile is a powerful way to make a good first impression. A handshake creates a connection between two people. The same is true when it comes to telling your story. Before you open your mouth to tell a story, there are things speaking for you. Let's focus on 3. Your profile picture, your content, and how you engage with others' content. Your visibility starts even before you speak. Scientists discovered
So actually what I gave you guys there is, that wasn't the intro. I gave you guys a little taste of the actual course. And like yours, it's short. It's 15 minutes. Like I sat there and I said, 2 days of filming and it's 15 minutes. Who can't complete a course in 15 minutes? And you get a certificate at the end, which I think is pretty awesome that you get to post on your LinkedIn profile.
Absolutely. And before we move on, I just want to say,
Yes.
Your set, flawless, fantastic. I mean, everything about it, flawless. I mean, it is very fitting with what you are talking about. So like, kudos to you. One of the things I wanted to ask you is, I thought I was a pretty good content creator before I got to LinkedIn and I was like recording. And then when I got there, it was the first time I had to like sit and use like a teleprompter. There were like people around me while I was recording.
Yeah.
And, I felt very out of place, even though, at that time I was probably creating 4 to 6 TikTok videos like a day. So I thought I'd be very like comfortable creating video. But I mean, what was your experience like filming this like amazing course? It looks like great.
It was so much fun. So I was able to film in their studios in California, and that was such an amazing experience. LinkedIn has an amazing team of producers and people, that work with you to create this product, this final product. For me, it felt very much like home. Working in television for 20 years, seeing the camera, seeing the prompter, the I can't think of the grip and all the people who the camera guy who's doing all of the things. I felt very much at home. And Lloyd, this is why I tell people all of the time. I live by this mantra. Nothing is wasted. Like our life is not a waste. Every experience, every mess, every failure, whatever it is, it's not a mess and it's not it's not a waste. So when I was in this studio, doing the thing for LinkedIn Learning, I remember thinking to myself, they wanted us to shoot kind of some, promo videos to promote the course as it was coming out. And I remember thinking to myself, I did this for 20 years. It was like on the spot, I had to do this promo. And I just knew exactly what I needed to say, how I needed to deliver it, because I spent 20 years behind the scenes watching Craig Melvin, Judy Gadsden, Darcy Strickland, Dondi Mercer-Plank, all the people I work with deliver on camera. And I would sit there rolling the teleprompter, watching them. And now fast forward to many years, now I'm not behind the camera, I'm in front of the camera because nothing is wasted. So I just want to say, for the person who's watching this and you're on your 9 to thrive, notice I said your 9 to thrive, right? You're on your 9 to thrive. Please be encouraged and to know that your time there is not wasted. It's your training ground. And whatever you're learning there, you'll be able to use that in your journey if you so fit to become an entrepreneur.
One of the things you talk about that I love, and like part of why I set this up was for kind of selfish reasons, just to get my questions off. I figured I could email all these questions or I could just do a live. So here we are. But I think your course is so concise and it has so much value. And one of the things you talk about is video creator personas. Can you talk a little more about like what that
Yes.
is?
Yeah, we have to understand if you are a speaker, coach, consultant, business owner, that you are a brand. Lloyd, you're a brand, and you've seen that since your journey of starting in 2021 up until the present, the people and the companies that are working with you. So you're a brand. So one of the things that we have to understand is, how do I get people to stop their scroll? Like, how do I get my personality to stand out, or this quirky thing that they see before they ever hear what I have to say out of my mouth? And so part of my video persona is these big glasses. Totally happened accidentally, right? My friend Adrienne Young, who is the first lady of frames, loves big glasses, and she got me into it. And I started wearing these big glasses, Lloyd. And then people would say things like, I only came here because I saw you on my For You page on TikTok. And I was like, what's this lady saying with the big glasses? Oh my gosh, I was scrolling on TikTok and I only stopped because I saw your big glasses and these big earrings. And I was like, who's bold enough to wear that? So this
Wow.
became a part of my video persona. So now people stop because they're like, what is she saying? So what is your persona? What is the thing that people could always count on to see or experience? And then once they experience the content, it was stuff like, we love how you are energetic. We love how you are always educating people, right? That's a part of your video persona. Think about Seinfeld. I think I've seen it once, but it's said that in every Seinfeld episode, there is a Superman in the background, like just strategically placed. Somewhere you're going to see Superman. I've caught it.
Wow.
I hadn't seen any other time like that. But that's a part of the persona of the show. So just think about that when you're showing up on camera, is what is it that I can deliver to people that is like they can always count on? That's a part of how I show up.
Wow, I love that so much. And part of what sometimes you see people that are really successful online and you just
Yes.
assume that like, oh, they got there by happenstance or they went viral, but there's just so much strategy, so much intentionality, and so much
Yes.
nuance that comes into play with like creating really good content, especially really good video content. And that's what I really appreciate about your course.
Thank you, Lord. I would say, isn't it the same thing when it comes to podcasting? You being intention of saying, we can start this on our phone, we can do this on our phone, but then what are we going to do after this? Like, what is the intention behind your podcast? Because we're in a day and age, Lloyd, everybody's starting a podcast now. It's the cool thing to do. But I love that you're also telling people how easy it is to do, but also being intentional about what you want to do with this podcast, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And you know what I love about podcasting is just that there's very few places online right now where people will say, I'm going to listen to Lloyd for an hour a week and I'm going to do it every week. Like, even TikTok can't give you, even if you watch all of my
Right.
TikTok videos 3 times a day, it still wouldn't be an hour. And so it's amazing that people can have that level of commitment to your content and that level of depth. And what I've been seeing is there's people that start their podcast and they start it on their phone. I have a client actually that gets
Mhm.
maybe like 30 or 40,000 downloads on her podcast. She does it on her phone. She uses like the free hosting. She's just like as a simple setup. I mean, and she's
Wow.
monetized and she has a great following. And so it's just not only just a simple platform, but such a great way to build like depth with the people that consume your content.
Can we talk about that? I love that you talked about that. Podcasting is a great way to build depth. I think we are in a day and age. Listen, I love short form video like everybody else. 15, 30, 60 seconds, great. But I tell people, and you just proved this by talking about an hour-long podcast, that people can only get so much from you in 15 seconds,
Yeah.
30 seconds, 60 seconds. There is something still to be said about long form video. So, just as you are telling people to start a podcast, I'm the same way with telling people to start a live show. What we're doing here, we've been live here for about 25 minutes because there's something to be said about this longer form video, about what we're discussing that we would have never been able to tell people in 15 seconds.
Yeah, you're so right. And I don't know if you've been seeing this, but one of the things I've been noticing is that people are starting to use our video lives, our long form video, our long form podcast almost as our portfolio. And so there's times where I'll approach a client and we'll get to the point in the conversation where I feel like I now need to prove my credentials or prove my expertise.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like they just bypass that part just because they've already been consuming so much of my content that they know, like, oh, besides the price and the how you do this, I trust that you know what you're doing because I've consumed your content to that extent. And so I love
Yes.
that, you know, long form video podcasting can act almost as like our portfolio, so to speak.
I totally agree. I received a client most recently because she binge watched my content on YouTube. And and I talk about this in my course, I was able to land a commercial, my first television commercial, because this agent found me on Facebook. He saw my profile picture, loved my profile picture. And then the next thing that he did, he went and binge watched some of my live videos.
Wow,
This
that's
is a
so crazy.
commercial, ladies and gentlemen, a commercial. They contacted me and I was the lead in this commercial.
Yeah, I want to ask you two questions about that. The first
Yes.
is just like one of the things you talk about that I need to learn more about this. Can you talk a bit about
Mhm.
media kits slash demo reels and how we can
Yes.
leverage video to get more opportunities? And then also
Mhm.
number two, talk about just relationships and sort of how you've leveraged relationships either to help with like get your LinkedIn course or just any other opportunities. How have you leveraged relationships in like the world of business, so to speak?
So good. Really great question. So, number one, as far as more opportunities and using my content or video content to get more opportunities. For me, one of my opportunities is I build my visibility like a sandwich. Most of my references, ladies and gentlemen, are always going to be about food because my retirement plan is to get an RV and eat my way through America. Okay. Judge your mama. Don't judge me. So, okay, that's my retirement plan.
I like that.
But when it comes to building your visibility, build it like a sandwich. One slice of the bread is traditional media. That would be like radio, television, and print. And then the other slice of the bread is new media, which is what we're doing here, podcasting, etc. So for me, one of my visibility plans and strategies is to use new media and traditional media, right? So a lot of times, Lloyd, I have used my live video, and this happened especially in 2020 during the pandemic. I was doing a live video teaching parents about like the proper etiquette when it comes to utilizing Zoom because everybody was trying to figure out the Zoom thing, right? And one of my local journalists that I was connected to on social media, this is the pro tip. If you want more media, start following the people that you want to do more media with. They saw that I was live, they watched it, and he inboxed me and he said, "Hey, can you come on our morning show and do that exact presentation?"
Wow.
So that's one way that I leverage a lot of the content that I do here is making sure that I'm connected to the people that I want to connect with, that I want to do a life and business with. And so that way they can see the content and see my presentation. One thing I know about TV producers, because I worked in that industry, that if you're going to pitch the media, we're always going to Google you.
Mm,
And now your live videos are searchable. So if someone Googles me, they'll see some of my video content out there and they're like, "Oh, are you doing that? Oh, yeah. Oh, she's a big deal." I had someone tell me that one time. Like I had a company tell me, "Oh, you're a big deal." And on the inside, I'm like this, Lloyd. No, you're a big deal. But that's how, and I hope I answered your question. That's how I'm leveraging my content to further establish me as an expert, as an authority in my space, right? And
I
then
love that.
and so to get to the next question when you said about relationship, I think everything in life works by relationship. I don't see any other way you can do it. I mean, I believe that if you're doing anything significant and it doesn't require people, then it's not that significant.
Right.
So it's always going to require people. And so one of the things that I have been doing is, especially in this entrepreneur space, I've been intentional about investing in relationships and investing in those that I want to see grow, not just because I want a hand up someday, but just so we can all win, right? I inboxed you and I said, "Hey, we're both LinkedIn instructors. Let's do a live video together and, talk about this X, Y, and Z," right? because I want to continue to grow this relationship and even see how we could further support each other and what we're doing. When your course came out, I shared it out. I'd let people know. So it's really important to leverage relationships because I'm here as a LinkedIn learning instructor because of relationship. I invested in a relationship with someone long time ago. We stayed in contact. We did business together. I spoke at her event. She spoke at my event. We just continued to grow with each other. And then when there was an opportunity, she said, "Hey, I know this person. I know her content. I think she would be really great to do X, Y, and Z." I don't think we take time to grow relationships, Lloyd, anymore. I think we're so used to just sliding in people's DMs or in people's inbox and say you want to immediately sell to them and not take the time to really court people instead of having a one night stand with people.
That's so good. I 1000% agree. I think relationships can take you places that talent can't take you. And, there's a lot of
Sir.
people that are super talented, but may not have the right connect. And so
Yeah.
I 1000, I remember when I started on TikTok in December of 2021. And I
Hmm.
remember just telling my wife, gosh, if I could just work with Spotify, if I could just work with Spotify. It just so happened that maybe like a month after that happened, I met someone at Spotify after I got on TikTok. So I'm thinking like, oh, this is it. Like, I'm set. I'm set. We're gonna collaborate. We're gonna work. Turns
Yeah.
out we didn't actually end up collaborating for about a year, right? And so it is that sort of like using that year to not only feel like because this person can't help me now, they're in value, they're not valuable to me, but
Hmm.
instead like shepherding that relationship and hopefully eventually it turns into something. But you know it's not necessarily your follower count or your talent as a TikTok creator
Yeah.
that gets you opportunities as much as it is who you know and those relationships.
Lloyd, that's so good because I tell people all the time, I said, I don't have 10,000 followers on, I don't think any platform now that I think about it. I mean, I don't. Last time I checked, I know. Okay, let's think IG. I think we're up to like close to 7,000. Okay,
Yeah,
but I don't have 10,000 followers. But I've worked with the Kellogg Foundation twice.
right.
I've worked with Boeing. The big jumbo jet people. I've worked with them. I'm now a LinkedIn learning instructor. I've been on the Today Show twice, the Tamron Hall Show, CBS The Talk. I'm just giving. I want to take away the excuse of saying I don't have the big numbers, so therefore you're invalid. And that's not true. Let me be the example of, well, Roshanda doesn't have a blue check mark. They took away my blue check mark on Twitter, by the way. I'm just okay. I'm fine. I'm not bitter.
No,
But I'm just saying, I don't have all of the things that everybody says that you need in order to feel like you've arrived or you're valuable. But what I do have is integrity. What I do have is valuing relationships. What I do have is a great message. What I do have is putting in the work and all of those things and relationships and treating people with kindness and respect and honor. And those things have continued to work for me time and time again.
I love that so much. That's so on point. I love that. I think this is such a faith journey. And when you create content and
Yeah,
you put stuff into the world and it's out of your control and you're just trusting God to do what he's gonna do, I think all of
exactly.
those things like matter, being like when the opportunities do come, being a person of integrity, being a person that gets, my wife and I always talk that like, we don't have the biggest following, but we gonna email you back. We'll get you this like the work on time. We'll do all the things we
Right.
need to do for you to like us and want to work with us. We just won't have large followers, and that's not a deterrent. You could still do great work, just like you. By the
Yeah.
way, major flex, and I love it. You're killing it.
Thanks, Fred.
Yeah.
So are you.
One of the things I wanted to ask you is like I think a lot. I resonate a lot with what you said about doing traditional media. Working with
Mhm.
TV stations and all of those traditional outlets. What are some of the ways that you like pitch yourself to them? And I saw you make a few posts about this on LinkedIn, and I loved it so much. And I think that's one of the areas I'm lacking. I could be doing a better
Mhm.
job, not only being a little more organized with how I like package myself as like a creator, especially a video creator, and then also
Yeah.
doing a better job actually like reaching out to people and saying this is my demo reel, right? For example.
Yeah. One of the things with pitching the media is really having a news peg. One of the things I teach our clients all the time is how to think like a producer. And thinking like a producer is different than being a consumer. I am not going to consume more content than I produce. So
Mm.
when I see a trending story or I see a story popping off and everybody's talking about it, I'm not the person, Lloyd, who's like, oh my gosh, everybody's talking about this and I'm reading all the comments and I'm hitting share. I'm the person who's literally, my husband will tell you this. I'm the person thinking about, if everybody's already talking about this, how can I insert this into my brand, or how can I insert myself into the conversation? And so that's what causes you to stand out. And so when you are able to pitch a story to the news station that they may not even consider, they didn't think of, or they're just like, oh, that is interesting. Yeah, let's talk about that. Or you're able to share with them, hey, the Surgeon General, I think about my most recent pitch. The Surgeon General came out and said that he believes that 13-year-olds even should not be on social media, even though social media says that if you're 13 or older, you can have a social media platform. He says that they are not developed mentally to handle social media, right? And so I pitched a TV station about that. I said, how do you know your child is ready for social media? Well, there's a couple reasons why I could talk about that. First of all, I'm in the digital space and I'm a mom of a 15-year-old and a 12-year-old. So I'm in the throes of this. And not only did the station love it, they were just like, hey, we want you to do 2 hits in our morning show talking about this, a part one and a part two. So it's understanding how to look at the news around you and seeing where there's a natural fit that you can flow into that. And then also maybe looking at a news story that they haven't even thought about and pitching them that story and making you the expert who can come in and talk to their audience about it.
Wow, I love that. That's so insightful, and I'm definitely going to use that to get some opportunities. So once it
Please.
all works out, we'll circle back and celebrate on the
I
back end.
love
You
it.
know, I think similar to what you just mentioned with video, in the world of podcasting, there's a little bit of strategic finesse, a little bit of
Hmm.
intuitiveness necessary just to like understand what's happening, read it, and see how that can fit into what you're doing. And it seems like that applies quite a bit in the world of like video as well, and when it comes to like working
Correct.
with brands as well.
Right. Because would you say that all podcasts are not created equal? You want to make sure that you're pitching a podcast that your audience is there or it aligns with your message, right?
Absolutely. And you know, even for the podcasts that are growing, of all the podcasts that are successful,
Mm,
the ways in which they monetize is all different. And so I was listening to a guy talk that has a podcast that has about 500,000 downloads, but they make about $7 million per year in revenue. And then there's also larger podcasts that make millions of downloads but don't make
yeah.
nearly enough money. And so having the ability to sort of like figure out what, like, you know, we're growing, we have 500K, what can we do with that now? Like, how can we monetize that? How can we add value to
Mm,
our audience? It just kind of differs for everyone. And so it's very hard to explain to someone like that, like being able to look for those opportunities in a space and pitch yourself. It's something that just requires like
mm,
intuition a bit. And so as I heard you talk about video and how you can sort of pitch, I resonated a lot with that on the podcast side of the house
mhm.
too.
So on the podcast side, can you give people some tips on how do you know this is a good podcast for you and your message and what you're doing in the online space?
Yeah, absolutely. I look at it sort of as different pillars. And so the first pillar would be to ask yourself, if you're starting a podcast and you have an idea that you want to work with, ask yourself if this is something you feel comfortable being consistent on for the next 3 years, for example.
Mm,
This isn't something that in any way should discourage you, because I'm not a believer that if you don't think you're going to do something for the rest of your life, don't do it. I'm someone that believes situations require flexibility. So for instance,
mm-hmm,
I started a podcast in December called Creator Hub. It's essentially a podcast for other podcasters, and the title of the podcast was Untitled for
mm-hmm.
4 months, right? Just no name, we just gonna
Wow.
rock with it, right? And just sort of like as I get better ideas, as I thought I found a name, then I thought I found a niche. And so that's how I think of podcasting. This is a marathon. And so even if you don't know where you're going,
Mm-hmm,
just know that as you start, you may have to pivot a bit. So that would be layer one. Layer two would be then figuring out, like, I've officially started now. How can I make this better? And then layer three would be, I'm improving this. How can I find out how to monetize it? And so it's almost like a small pillar, but that's how I go about it.
I love that. So when it comes to pitching yourself as a guest on a podcast, is there certain things that people should look for?
Yeah, that's such a great question. Because like back to like the pillar thing, I think there's just like some fundamental things that if you
Mhm.
avoid, you will set yourself apart tremendously. The bulk majority of like podcast pitches I get, I can easily tell they don't know what my podcast is about. That's just like the first thing. If you actually know
Oh,
what my podcast is about, you've already set yourself apart tremendously, right? And then at that point, I think if you can figure out how not only to pitch why you are the perfect guest, but also what you can talk about, you've won even more. So someone emailed me last week and they're like, "Hey, I love your podcast. I listened to all your episodes. I would love to be a guest. This is my background. And here's what I would love to talk about. Here are a few bullet points." I saw that email on Friday. I booked the studio for tomorrow. That's just how like easy they made my life. And so I think just sort of like
love it.
paying attention, being present, showing respect and honor to the people you're emailing, but also just putting some like effort and also just, sharing some ideas could set you apart tremendously.
Lord, do you know everything that you just said is the same thing on the side when it comes to TV? Doing your research and understanding, is this a thing I need to pitch for the morning show or the evening show? Understanding the two are not the same. And then understanding how the show flows and telling me what you can do for me without sending me an email. And then I got to figure out, okay, well, what can you talk about? What can you be a guest about? Like, don't do the work for me. Think like a producer and help me help you by giving me what you can do without me having to figure it out. Amazing.
You're so right. I'm very curious. What are some of the questions that you've got from people as they've taken your course?
So I haven't gotten a lot of questions from people. The overwhelming feedback I've gotten from a lot of people was like, this is exactly what they needed. They
Wow.
feel confident. They're going to make some changes when it comes to their profile and their profile picture and how they're showing up online. What about you? Any questions about podcasting?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think the biggest are just sort of like I think people want to find out if there's ways that can like expedite the process or if there's anything that they can do to like
Hmm.
grow a little faster. And it's kind of, I feel bad a lot of times is telling people that, I think like the best thing you can do to set yourself apart is just like be consistent. Even if you
Slow and
didn't,
steady.
yeah, if you didn't plan on getting better or changing anything, if you just said, I'm going to do the same thing every week, that right there would set you apart tremendously. And so I
Mhm.
think, my perspective is this that podcasting is a marathon and trying to encourage people that, they're on the right journey. And it's just like going to the gym. It's just like faith. You're working out that muscle and at the appropriate time that will become very visible.
I love it. I love it. You guys, if you go to the description of this video, we have the links on how you can follow Lloyd and I on social media, but also we have the direct link to our LinkedIn learning course. And the thing that's really cool is, Lloyd, they get to watch this for free if they're a part of the LinkedIn platform, correct?
That is correct.
Tell people about that.
Yeah, I'm constantly just blown away at just how much easier LinkedIn is
Yes.
making this. I'm very shocked, and so it's been very nice. I feel I partner with a lot of different brands, probably like 8 to 10 brands per month, and whenever I work with like brands that just make me feel good to work with them, I always
Hmm.
celebrate. LinkedIn has been just that. At first, my like process creating the course was pleasant, but even after launching the course, just how easy they've made it to make this course accessible to people has been such a breath of fresh air. So you can actually check out the podcast for free right now if you're on the LinkedIn platform. In addition to that, it's also 19
Hmm.
minutes. When you complete it, you get a certificate. In addition to that, as you're going through the course, you can also drop questions in the QA feature that I will answer for you if you have questions throughout the process. And so it's just exciting to see LinkedIn putting that much effort to make sure that people like are taking these courses, which, before I did this course, I didn't even know about LinkedIn Learning, but it's such a big platform and there's so
Yes.
many courses once you're on the platform. I would encourage you if you're a professional or an entrepreneur just to check it out because there's opportunities for both, even creators.
I agree. And the thing about it is you can go into that search bar feature and search anything and there's a course for that. And they're still rolling out courses. And I've taken some courses from how to edit with CapCut for video
Yeah.
creators to your course about podcasting. It's endless. And then what I love about it is you get that certificate that at the end that you can now post on your LinkedIn profile. And now you add to your credibility that you're doing more professional development. It's like a win-win. And these courses are provided to you for free inside the LinkedIn platform. Why would you
Yeah,
not do it?
absolutely. And I think just to earlier we were talking about relationships. All of the courses I've
Yes,
taken, I've been able to directly message with the people that created those courses. And so just from like a
same.
relationship building standpoint, it's been a game changer.
Yeah, LinkedIn is very good at doing that, at building relationships, because once you hit that complete and the certificate, it automatically tags the creator. And so the creator sees it and they're able to engage with you. I've gotten so many inbox messages building my platform. My visibility as an expert over on LinkedIn has just been amazing. I think the biggest takeaway here in our conversation, Lloyd, is everything works through relationships. You and I are here because of a relationship that started on TikTok that has continued to grow on LinkedIn. Everything starts with relationships.
You're so right. And I think that, in the world of podcasting, I think a lot of people think that there's things that are like, if you go on your Apple Podcast app and you click the browse section where it shows you new podcasts,
Mhm.
I think people assume that that's all like AI and it's just picking random podcasts. But all of those podcasts are being selected by people. And if you are a podcaster right now, you could actually Google like Apple editorial calendar, Apple editorial forum, Spotify editorial forum, and that's how you can pitch your podcast to be featured in some of those categories. So that, in addition to building relationships, completely sets you apart. And the last thing I just want to say about podcasting is just that, like, one trend we're seeing in the podcast space is more podcasters are using LinkedIn to promote and grow their podcast. LinkedIn has a new newsletter feature that just makes it easier to connect with people that follow you. People are
Mhm.
literally just also sharing their podcast through their newsletter feature. So there's so many different benefits from using LinkedIn, especially as like a podcaster.
I love it. And as a video creator, I echo exactly what Lloyd just said. It's the same thing. The newsletter feature is absolutely amazing. And I've been able to share my course in there as well. And the last time I checked, we're over 3,000 learners. And that's been
Yes.
amazing since we launched. I know we launched it February 15th or 16th, our course. When
Um,
did you launch?
I was February 2nd, I think.
Okay, so we
Yeah.
launched it in the same month. And so we're just grateful for everybody who is supported and did all of the things. Like, I love it. Christina says, "Whoa, that's a big tip." Thanks, Christina. Thanks for being here.
Yes.
Listen, any final comments before we end our discussion today?
Yeah, no, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your platform with me. I've always just been so grateful for how much you support my content and some of the things I'm releasing in my course. And so I just really,
Oh,
really
friend.
appreciate you sharing your platform with me.
It's been a pleasure. Since I'm telling you, since I appropriately stalked you on TikTok, it's moved from TikTok to LinkedIn, and it's been great to be able to be in this space with each other. And thank you for saying yes when I inboxed you and said, "Hey, I got this wild idea. You want to come on and talk about our experience as LinkedIn learning instructors?" So I'm looking for, and you guys, we've not met in person yet. We have not
Yes.
met in person yet, but it's going to happen one day. So, Lloyd, thank you so much.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Listen, don't leave yet. Guys, everybody, make sure you do me a favor. Go and check out our courses. The information is in the description of this video. Do us a favor. Go ahead and watch all 19 minutes. Lloyd's is 19 minutes, mine is 15 minutes. And then after you listen to it, get your certificate, leave us a review. Okay? People on LinkedIn are watching. Leave us a review and then share it and tag your business bestie, your clients, and other people so they can learn how to start a podcast or learn how to show up as a video creator. I'm Roshanda Pratt, known in the digital streets as the Rosho Live, video visibility coach and producer, empowering you to build a brand with video because your visibility is power. I'm here with my buddy. Wait, this way. Yeah, I'm here with my friend, Lloyd George, all right? The podcast guy. Make sure to follow him. You guys be blessed and have a great evening.